All right. What's up, friends? Today I've got an old friend, Ace, on here to the Go Set, and we met several years ago in the speaking space, and then we have reconnected recently, which has been super fun. But one of her passions, among the many things that she does, is teen suicide prevention. And so we wanted to have that conversation today because here at the Inspire Speaker Network and the school, we're always talking about movements, and this is a movement that needs to happen because it is a big problem that's happening right now. And Ace also, she's going to get on here and share her story. She's going to give us some practical tips on what you can do that will actually make a difference. So I'm really excited about having this conversation. So welcome to the floor, Ace.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Michelle, for bringing me on. It is very true. I'm incredibly passionate about teen suicide prevention, so much so that I started a podcast with the Teen Suicide Prevention Society.
Wow. Yes. Very,
Yeah.
very passionate. And as a content creator, and you're really in the IG space as well. So you, I'm sure, are a beautiful asset to them.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I partnered as a content creator, and essentially what we did was, how nonprofits nowadays, they pretty much bleed dry after 2 years, mainly from donations.
Yes.
Right. And you're continuously asking for donations, but sometimes you don't get them after 2 years. So to bridge that gap, I learned about something called a B Corp certification. So 50% of the profit from a B Corp certification license in a business goes to a community or the nonprofit that you are partnered with. And then the other 50% goes towards sustaining whatever is driving that revenue fundraising asset.
Really interesting. Actually, I had no idea that that was like a thing.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Yeah, that's exactly the business model that I created when developing Touched and Empowered, the podcast.
wow, really cool. So tell us more. You obviously have a personal story with suicide that makes you very passionate about it. Can you go there with us and share your story?
Yeah, happy to. So when I was younger, I struggled a lot mentally when I was around 8 years old, and essentially my parents didn't know. And I wasn't aware because at that age, you're not really privy to that type of communication. So I went into a child psychiatrist office to talk about ADHD. And the funny thing about that survey, which hasn't changed in years, by the way, they actually ask if you have suicidal thoughts. And in that questionnaire, my mom laughed at it at first. She was like, "What? No way, you're too young. That can't be a thing." And I laughed with her because I just didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And the doctor went over that survey again with me in front of my mother. And like I paused at that question, and immediately he caught it and went, "Whatever you tell us here will help you and your mother." And she broke down crying after I said I did, and I was just 8, right? And to be fair, a lot of the adversity is coming growing up as a first generation American in a immigrant generation family. There was a lot of strife, a lot of struggle, and a lot of things that weren't shared because we just didn't have the language to talk about it. And then mental health was always a stigma, right?
Yeah.
So hearing that, I always felt like I was repressed to talk about that struggle. And then it just kept festering. And over time, what I found was when I shared vulnerably and openly with anyone of any type of financial background, diversity background, or whatnot, everyone did share the same type of struggle, down to the T. And I found out later that suicidal thoughts, especially in my hometown in Edison, New Jersey, it was common. It was not something that was like, "Oh my gosh, that's crazy that you have those thoughts." It was, "Oh yeah, you too? Okay, we're friends."
Yeah.
Because
Wow. Yes. And I know there's been we're going to talk about so many things. I have so many questions because I know there's been an increase recently as well. Maybe not necessarily an increase in occurrence, but of awareness. And yeah, and I think with the ADHD thing as well, I have a friend of mine, and that's how they figured out that her son was ADHD, because he was around the same age and having major suicidal thoughts. And then it turned out that that was what was going on. But she was like, wow, what's happening here? Right? Because it is, I think, one of the reasons, like you're saying, nobody wants to share, because a lot of people don't understand. They don't know how to react, just like your mom did. Oh, ha, ha, ha. Or like, of course, that's not going to happen to you. Let me shove it off. Or maybe we freeze up because we don't know what to do with that. Right? It's awkward for people who don't experience that. So can you tell us a little more? I know you pulled up your statistics, but can you tell us a little bit more? Like, how common is it? What's the situation here?
Oh, I love that you say that. So, bringing up the statistics from CDC. All right. So, today, this was from 2023, actually. So, the CDC released the latest provisional estimates for suicide deaths in the United States in 2022. After declining in 2019 and 2020, suicide deaths increased approximately 5% in the United States, and this is before the pandemic. The provisional estimates released today included the suicide deaths were rising from 48,188 deaths to 49,449. Now, these are the deaths, not the attempts. So that's actually very important. And it's very nerve-wracking to understand that they continue to grow and they continue to rise in numbers. But thankfully, there are places like the Teen Suicide Prevention Society that allows that safe space for that stigma to dissipate. And you can sit there and speak with somebody openly, and there are tools that they provide essentially to help your teen, because as a parent, that's really hard, right? Knowing that your child is going through that. And then there's also this nerve-wracking, like, what if I leave them alone? What's going to happen? That anxiety also ensues. So what I've noticed about that is there's actually a talk that the Suicide Prevention Society has curated to create a new neural pathway for oneself and their kids, so that when they are alone, when you're speaking with them, you create this new safety net that kicks in case something may happen.
Right. Yeah. And tell us more, because I think, let's talk more about that too, because I think that is one of the common things that people are struggling with, especially parents, with how do you deal with, that's a great phrase, right? But how do you connect with, how do you help someone that is struggling with this? I have a good friend from college that has struggled with this his entire life, and still sometimes he reaches out to me and he says, hey, I'm feeling really, really low right now, or this is how I'm feeling, this is what I'm doing, and says very dark things in those moments, which it's sad to hear. But I think there's a lot of people that aren't comfortable with hearing those things. It's too scary, right? At what point do you tell somebody? So I know you probably have all of the answers too. You have all the answers, right, Ace? You have all the answers. So tell us. Actually, is what I'm stumbling around with too. But can you kind of tell us, what are some of the common fears? What are some of the common fears? What are some of the common challenges that people have with this? How can we help? How can we be more open and help the situation?
So what I've noticed about having those conversations, because if you call the suicide hotline, as somebody who's trying to support or pull somebody out, it's pretty traumatizing, actually. They try and guide you and help the person just realize what they're doing. And when you're in that position as a person who's trying to keep somebody alive, and you don't feel like you have the necessary training to do so, it's terrifying. You're like liable for somebody's life who's right in front of you. You could say anything, and like there's a slim chance that that other person is going to wake up and come to and want to keep living, right? That's a really big fear, understanding that you're responsible for the person in front of you that might not be alive tomorrow, right? So what's so important and crucial, especially with the terrifying ways that people do this, people attempt, is reminding them like what's worth living for. So the Teen Suicide Prevention Society, essentially, they conduct this type of training where they teach you this dialogue, how to conduct a dialogue with somebody, and not necessarily incept an idea, but essentially open up a new way to think so that you don't go down the rabbit hole of negativity. So, for instance, Michelle, are you open to a conversation about suicide? And you
Yes.
say,
Yeah.
thank you. Some people aren't. Then you ask why. And then additionally, you ask, so, and I'm doing a very fast version because we're on an interview. The question is, why stay? What's worth living for?
Yes.
Right. And feel free to answer.
Okay. Yes. Actually, this is reminding me of a conversation with my friend, and he is a single dad, right? And his wife died, and he's like, well, maybe they're better without me. But whenever you really think about, are they really going to be better without you? You know, maybe that's not the right question, but basically, yeah, that is what he has to live for, is his children. Maybe I'm going the wrong direction. This is good conversation though, right? But like, if you go down the rabbit hole of, if you did do this, you know, then they're not better off, because they're out of two parents. And are they going to feel like they belong? Are they going to have, are they always going to wonder if they were the reason? Or I don't know. There's just, to me, I didn't go that way with him, but that was my thought process of like, really think it's gonna, oh yeah, I'm not a good parent for them, but okay, who's gonna be a better parent for them? You're the parent that they want, even if you're imperfect, right?
And that's a beautiful conversation to encourage. So now imagine, I'm going to ask you directly, right? Okay. What is worth living for? Why stay?
For me, it is my kids, because they love me. And, whenever I was younger, my parents got divorced, which is nothing like suicide, but I felt totally abandoned. And I know what it feels like to feel like, oh, it's my fault, nobody cares about me, or they chose that over me, and it's such a struggle and again, that was like me and my interpretation of the situation, but it was a struggle and it was painful. And so being there for my kids is a big deal, that they know that I love them, that I'm there for them, that I'm not perfect, that all of that. And then I think additionally too, we have, just like everybody else, I have an impact. There's people that only I can touch in my specific way. And if I'm not here to do that, then that's depriving other people of a beautiful light and a specific purpose that I have.
And see right there, that answer that you provided and you said yourself, it kicks in those moments. One of my friends, actually the person, Katie Miller, who is my co-host on the Teen Suicide Prevention Society, who's also the director of the Teen Suicide Prevention Society, as a co-host of Touch and Empowered, our podcast, she actually, when she was doing the talk with somebody, she answered, and she was being a little bit of a smart ass, I guess I can say. She was basically like saying something funny, but in the darkest moment that she had, and she actually talks about this a lot, that answer that she provided for that question was, because I haven't seen a unicorn yet. and it kicked in and it made her laugh. And then because of that, she had that new neural pathway to go, oh, okay, come back from the edge.
Yes.
There are things to live for. And sometimes it could just be something funny and some type of laughter. And that's so important. And understanding how the suicide rates are increasing. Also, by the way, the data today, every year, 703,000 people take their own life, and are many more people who attempt. It's crazy to think, but the fourth leading cause of death among 15 to 29-year-olds globally in 2019 was suicide. So the data, of course, is continually being researched, especially with the pandemic, because imagine being isolated during the pandemic and then all of the things that we've had to unpack for years comes up. It's so important to have these conversations where you're sharing the purpose of your life, understanding your mission, like you mentioned, and seeing how valuable your real life really is to others. That's so crucial at a time like this, especially since we're pivoting from not having AI, which could do everything for you, and people are losing their jobs, but also understanding that as a human on a deep level, you are impacting so many people just by being alive. And that's worthwhile. And I believe that as long as we continue to share that message with others, the suicide rates will decrease.
Yeah.
Speaking of which.
There we go. Yeah, so beautiful that, and even on the core, that just being alive, just breathing is impacting people. It's giving, if nothing else, you're giving someone something to love, like your parents or your family members. And I mean, while a lot of us would strive for, we have big ideas, we have big goals, we have other things that we want to create in the world, at the core, that love's the most important thing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to, I don't have it on here. I'm going to put the link on here, but can you tell us more about Touch and Empowered?
So Touch and Empowered is actually going through a big upgrade. I'm like really excited. So Touch and Empowered is a podcast that my co-host Katie Miller and I started 81 episodes ago.
Wow. Nice.
So yeah, we're going strong, which is great. And we've been very consistent. Essentially, we've dropped an episode every Monday. We are in 22 episodes of pre-recorded production, so we're still moving, but we love interviewing others who have adversity stories so that they can encourage people to keep going. Any insightful tips that you have, we love hearing it. We love sharing it. And as a way to support us, feel free to make a donation at that website as well.
I was just fixing my spelling error there. So
also, on top of that, we are starting a newsletter. So feel free to subscribe as soon as we have it up. It's coming out in February. Very exciting.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, it's providing a weekly dose of empowerment. So there's some motivation. There's ways to stay in touch with us. There's ways to see our upcoming events, because we're going to have a retreat soon. And
too. Yes, so good. Yeah.
And also
such
more.
Beautiful. Sorry, I'm interrupting you.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, and there's also more information in regards to the Teen Suicide Prevention Society and how you can support both the podcast and the nonprofit so that we can continue to do the work that we're doing and hopefully save some lives in the process.
Yes, that's beautiful. And everything that you're doing is absolutely needed. And I love what you said about the business structure that you were able to create because of that. And that's really, really cool. And it reminds me of like the Tom shoes of, let's impact, let's give value, and then let's give back at the same time in a way that's going to be sustainable in the long run. And so if you have a story to share, which I know there's actually tons, there's several people in the Inspire Speaker Network who I've talked to who speak to this. And actually, I know who I'm going to connect you with after we get on. Okay, because this is such a great topic and really needed. And I was just speaking, I hope she doesn't mind, but one of those beautiful women in our group, she had this vision one time of just speaking out and talking to people. I think it was a dream about, and they looked dirty in her dream. And as if you can hear me, so they became clean as she spoke. And so it was like such a beautiful imagery to me of, she's like, that's my purpose, is that I'm speaking, I'm speaking life back into these people. I'm helping them not feel dirty anymore, but feel clean and pure and beautiful. And it just sounds so parallel to your conversation. And the more that we're able to speak our story, the more that other people know, hey, yeah, I'm not alone. This happens all the time, and people are still moving through it. And so is there any last words that you'd like to share with us before we end?
Sure. I actually inspired me. So I've been reading a book called The Wisdom of the Lotus Sutra. So I think we mentioned prior to, I'm accepting of all religions. My philosophy is based on some Buddhist text. If you're open to hearing this, feel free to listen. If not, I also understand in respect to your religions. But this is actually from Dr. Norman, somebody who spoke with my mentor, Daisaku Ikeda, a very long time ago. And he said that his cousins once wrote, "No one need fear death."
I lost you for a second here. Here we go.
Yay! And we're back.
We're back.
So, yay, no one need fear death. We need fear only that we may die without having known our greatest power. The power of his free person will to give his life for others. If something comes to life in others because of us, then we have made an approach to immortality.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And we will see you on the next podcast. Again, if you want to connect with Ace afterwards as well, comment below to this podcast and definitely reach out to her podcast, listen to that, and continue to support this super important